time I finish talking, it will be a full 24 hours worth of Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls that we were able to experience and play and dissect and to learn as best as we could. I wanted to wrap this weekend up by saying thanks to everyone that joined me on this entire journey in just playing this game, getting to really feel this game out and to try to understand it as best as possible. So of course, everyone from chat left a comment, lurked, played with me, gave a suggestion, gave an opinion. Thank you very much, because like, you know, none of this would be fun if, you know, it wasn't like all of us, you know, doing it together. It's been, again, a full day's worth, right? And we did 3 8-hour sessions, just this game, nothing else. No avatar, no other distractions. The only time we weren't like actually playing was like when I took necessary breaks, because I am no robot by any means. Let's just go over some of the things that I wrote, because I didn't want to forget any of these points that I wanted to make. And just to also, in a way, recap slightly the last 2 videos that we did talking about the impressions that we have, I can say that this is definitely going in an upward slope towards the more positive side of things. And obviously, I'm not a top player. I'm not a competitive player at that level by any means. I have, you know, competed in the past, but like, again, not at like the top level ever in my life. But I'm speaking as someone who has thoroughly enjoyed fighting games literally my entire life, all types of fighting games, versus games being a part of that genre. Naturally, being a Marvel lover, yeah, obviously I was gonna be on this game. Now, versus games aren't my favorite, but they can definitely be some of the more fun, admittedly, when you want to take a little break from just doing like 1v1s or, you know, what have you. I'm just gonna go over all of the cons first, so that way we can end this on a very positive light, because I'm not trying to be one of those folks that is just gonna blindly hate on something. And that's part of the reason why I really wanted to make sure that I spent as much time as I did on this game, so that way my opinion and my thoughts towards it can be as best put as constructive as possible, so that way hopefully maybe the folks at Arc System Works can watch this back and listen to what I'm saying, so that way they can, you know, take that and do what they will with it, right? The first thing right off the bat, just to get this out of the way, because we can't stress this enough, the tag system. There's been plenty of times in a lot of my matches where I wanted to call the assist, do a little bit of a mix, and then tag out into the assist that I just tagged in or tried to tag in, but I had to hold the button, or I wasn't in time with the button press, and then that left me open, and then, you know what, and obviously, you know what comes next, I get cooked, right? That is something that is not just me saying it, but that's other people also saying it as well. I feel like the tag system, if it was tweaked in a way where if you hit the button and then you wanted to actually keep that assist out and, you know, switch from that point on, they should change the holding the X button to just tapping it again. I feel like that would be pretty fair, and I don't see how it could be something that they couldn't do, because if the game has 3 assists, you have 3 potential tags, there's 4 directions on a joystick, at least with a game like this, and we have forward, a back, and a down. I feel like if they were to just leave the neutral press open to just allow the immediate tag in, once, you know, they're still, of course, within that window of availability on the screen, I think that would make playing this game way more fun than where it's at right now. The other thing that I think really should be reconsidered, because again, it's kind of hard to tell for certain things if they were purposefully made like this by design, or if this is something that, again, they can reconsider and change for a future update or for the final version of the game. And that's the down heavies, the 2 H's, the down circles. Those, I feel like they have such weird angles, and you would think, like, based on just how certain moves look, like those attacks would catch, but a lot of times I found it that they didn't, which is weird. Like, you really have to position yourself almost like all underneath your opponent or else you will whiff that. And more than not, there's a lot of instances where I find myself getting knocked back, and it's like I'm protected from getting grabbed, but I'm also being held back from punishing a jump in, which really shouldn't happen. It's like I'm getting frame trapped, but not really getting frame trapped, if that makes sense. I feel like it's one of the more deceiving things, aside from just the tagging that I was talking about before. 2H, down circle, down heavy, whatever you want to call it. That, I think, definitely needs to be looked at again. Here's a big one that I'm sure a lot of people are gonna side with me on. The fact that Storm is the only X-Men character is a crime. I cannot stress this enough. I understand this is the second beta, but I also understand that it's been since what, the summertime, since we've learned about this game's existence, and there was a whole beta 1 that already happened, and now this is the second one, and we still don't know at the time of this very video if there's any other X-Men that are in the game, and that's putting a lot of stress on people, especially with that X-Mansion stage. I did a whole video talking about all the characters that were in the background, but that doesn't really rule them out. But you know, I would definitely check that out if you haven't already. Rest assured, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're deconfirmed, but it still stresses a lot of players out, and you know, I feel like it'll put a lot of people at ease to just see visibly that Storm is joined by the likes of a Wolverine, a Cyclops, a Jean Grey, a Beast, a Nightcrawler, a Rogue, a Psylocke, a Gambit, an Angel. You know what I'm saying? The possibilities are endless. There's a lot of X-Men characters to go through, okay? Hopefully, if there is a beta 3, I hope by that point in time, there are other X-Men characters to join the fray alongside Storm. I feel like this is the biggest con. There was no training room. I want to spend more time playing the game in an effective way. And training mode, I'm not the type of person that I could find myself in the lab for hours. I will just get bored. I will get bored even faster if I have to try to finagle some sort of a way to simply practice. I am also a hands-on learner. I'm not someone, like I said, I can't realistically just stay labbing over and over and over, or for hours on end. Like at some point, like I'll give myself maybe 30 to 60 minutes, and it's like, okay, I gotta play somebody. I have to try to actually put the pen to the paper, the whatever to the whatever, okay? Like I gotta really make this happen. I understand like practice makes perfect. As someone that cannot stay in the lab, I was really wishing we had one. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that we had no training mode, kind of crazy. I'm hoping that if there is a next beta or whatever they decide to do, they have that option for players, so that way we don't have to complain about it. And they were definitely very aware. They were very self-aware, and I do appreciate that, because they were posting in the Discord, they were posting on Twitter, not necessarily directly saying like, oh, sorry, we don't have a training mode, but they were at least showing and guiding people how to set the CPU to level 1, so that way you can train. They knew. I guess, you know, just to maybe defend them a little bit, to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt here, these betas, I feel like, are major stress tests to see how they're able to handle the online capabilities. I feel like that was, of course, their primary focus, and all these other features, like even a training mode, was not even secondary. It was like third, fourth, fifth, or something like that. So those are all my cons that I wrote down, that I didn't want to forget, and there's nothing else at the top of my head that I could really think of. So let's go on to the more positive side of this experience, this entire weekend of playing this game. This game is colorful, it's vibrant, the character designs, amazing. Honestly, this is probably one of the best looking fighting games we've had in a long time. And not to say that any of the recent titles that we have to play look like crap or anything like that, but this one is so cool, and I think it pays a lot of respect and homage to where these characters come from, which are comic books, and that's like a part of the aesthetic. Like obviously this is a fighting game, but there's a lot of little, I guess you could consider them as Easter eggs, where when you really pay attention to all the little details that they added to the game, they really wanted to make sure and put emphasis that these are comic book characters. And I like that. I really do like that a lot. Like when you pick your team, they form a comic book cover. I think that's fire. As someone who loves comics, collects comics, and also collects variants, I feel like that's like something that they could definitely use as like a marketing thing later on, where it's like, oh, like come visit the Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls booth, create your own variant cover of your team, and like, you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that. I feel like that could really go the distance, right? The aesthetics of this game are awesome. I really do love them. The other pro that I want to say, despite this being a very chaotic game at times, this is a very fun and pretty simple game to play. And I say simple, and yes, and this actually ties in with my next point, so I guess I'll just combine them. It is newcomer friendly, believe it or not, because of how this game is designed. I feel like the control scheme, I don't mind the auto combos. It really doesn't bother me. I feel like those that are so hurt or they feel negatively towards auto combos, I think it's an ego thing, realistically. Let me explain. There's an illustrious history behind fighting games. The fact that games in general, but fighting games too in particular, were never the easiest of games to really master. And then to take it the next step further, you now are gonna try to train not just to beat the game, but to beat other people. You see what I mean? Like, there's a very competitive edge to fighting games. There's a nature in that. The fact that there's people that have made careers out of this, and they are constantly pushing themselves, pushing their limits to be the best. When you introduce something like an auto combo, it's almost disrespectful. I'm thinking of it and I'm saying it like this because that's what I feel like people are feeling. Because why else? They are probably thinking like back in my day, you know, not to make everyone sound like a dusty old head. Like, how else are you supposed to explain it? Truth of the matter is, it's kind of hard not to say that. And especially, you know, again, I've had my fair share of competitive play tournaments. I used to run my own tournaments, side note. And I definitely understand what that is like. I've had my fair share of grinding sessions and trying to get good and this and that. And I know the amount of time, literal blood, sweat, and tears that people could probably tell you way more than I could, how much of their life that they've given to these games to really learn, master, be the best at this craft, for them to literally almost, you know, essentially dumb it down in a sense. And I can understand why people would feel disrespected at that point. However, this is the part where I have to remind people that one of the issues that fighting games especially have is that there is a high ceiling for entry on arrival. And what I mean by that is the chances of someone brand spanking new taking a look at a fighting game and they say, that looks fun, I want to check that out, I want to play it, and then the chances of them actually sticking with it past a week or two, it's always slim. There's games like Mortal Kombat, for example, that they're namesakes. Everyone knows what Mortal Kombat is, right? You can have as much of a big budget, big marketing behind it. You can have all these commercials. You can have big stars being there like Batista. That game is going to sell well. But then what happens to the player base? What happens to a month in? You're going to have your hardcore audience. You're going to have those people that are going to stay playing the game because of course they're going to play. But to all of the new people that they were trying to catch and hold, that is an ongoing issue that fighting games have. And with this type of game, I do feel like, based on how it's built, there's potential to keep the new players. Because again, without new players, we stay feeling the same stale, dry, we're not really elevating level that, you know, I'm sure a lot of people expect. And it's like, we can only go so far on our own. You know what I'm saying? It's like within our community, and it is pretty big, but when I say, like, you have to really compare it to like all the other neighboring communities. It's like they got money. And why do they have money? Because they got players. We got players, but we don't have those kind of players. You understand? Like, we don't hit those types of numbers. We have our moments where it seems like, yeah, it looks like it is, but I say all this, of course, to remind people that at some point something has to give, and games are not going to play how they once did, if that makes sense. In being that Arc System Works, this is their first go at a Marvel versus game. People, again, I can't stress this enough, have to stop looking at this like the next iteration of a Marvel vs. Capcom. This is a brand new title. This is also not a Dragon Ball FighterZ game. This is not a sequel. This is a brand new entry in its own thing. So if there's anything after this, it'll be a part of the Tokon universe, okay? A couple other pros. Games are actually pretty fast, I'm not even gonna lie. As someone that likes a lot of different games, it's definitely appreciated when you can kind of log in and then log out. You know, and these games, even though it's 3 out of 5, they are pretty quick. And again, I feel like that's made by design. All the auto combos, all the normal combos, it seems like there's like this weird balance going on where it's like you can do some saucy combos if you're someone that really wants to push the boundary of a game and to exploit whatever there is to exploit and to discover all of these things about what a character can do and what a team can do and the synergy and all that kind of stuff. Like when you let the chefs cook, you really get some great recipes out of them, right? At the same time, for all the casual folks that are just trying to see some cool stuff on the screen, they can do their auto combos. They can figure out, oh, if I hit this button, I could tag in and like, you know, can kind of continue it and extend it in a way. Or if I'm just doing auto combos into specials, into supers, whoa, and the damage is still there, it only helps with making the games just pick up and go and just move on with your life. I don't see that as a con. I actually see that as a pro. Let me just talk about the connection. So I have this in the pro section because I wanted to, of course, acknowledge that the connections with all of the matches that I had, I want to say a good 85 to 90% of my games and my sets that I had with chat and with anyone that I got paired with randomly online was very good, very playable. Connections between east to west, I'm on the east, seemed pretty playable. There were a few hiccups here and there. I can't give it a perfect 100% that it was just godlike across the board. But then when you started going into territories of playing against people across the pond, we were trying to match up with someone in the UK and it wasn't really all that playable. That, of course, I'm sure is something that's going to be at the top of their priority list that they're gonna address and resolve, and you know, hopefully it just gets better and better with each iteration of these beta phases by the time the full game comes out. The last thing I wanted to mention is that with all of the things that I mentioned about like how this game plays mechanically and how like it plays with having your auto combos and whatnot, there are a pretty good amount of defensive options as well. I was actually kind of surprised by that, and it all connects with how they have their tag and assist system in place. So it's not like you can necessarily spam your defensive resources, but the resources are there. And it does help when you know in the back of your mind, like you don't just have to eat all of this crazy combo damage that you have coming your way. There are opportunities and there are chances that the game allows a player to actually breathe. Because I can tell you right now, nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to want to stick to playing a game when they're just being oppressed the entire time. And that's what I firmly believe that is always going to be a crutch for versus games, because versus games are all about that abusing your opponent, just making them feel so pressured that they literally cannot do anything. But that also adds a layer of appreciation for all of those players that really put in the time to know when it's time for them to push a button or for them to have a turn. It makes spectators of this sport appreciate it that much more, because you're literally witnessing godlike play from other human beings, and it's, you know, a sight to see, and it makes for an amazing time. You know what I'm saying? With having the defensive options, with not even just with the tagging, when you hold back and square and X, or if you're doing like the forward version of it that has like a little bit of super armor, it's not completely invulnerable, but again, it is a really good option to have. Just even getting wall splatted, and you know, sometimes I guess it could be a little annoying when you have so many different stage transitions and it's like back and forth almost sometimes, especially early on in the rounds. That again, I feel like is there so that way they have the player's best interest in mind. They are really trying to make sure that people don't feel the abuse and feel like they can't even play, because one of the biggest criticisms that I've ever had for versus games, especially for like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and trust me, I love that game. That's been one of my favorite games ever since I was a kid. But let me tell you something, that started the trend of one-player games. And here's a better example. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, another game that I have a lot of love for. I've had a lot of involvement in. That game's biggest flaw, you get touched, you're dead. And I have literally gotten word from actual Marvel vs. Capcom 2 veterans that, and I quote, you have to earn your play. Shout out to Chris Matrix. MVC2, it can be very abusive, but Power Rangers, I'm pretty sure is worse. And that's coming from a veteran of the game, bro. And you don't really see too many Marvel players touching that game. They might have dabbled with it, but it's literally because there's not that many defensive options, if any. If you don't believe me, go watch any top 8. That's everything. So overall, I'm ending this on a positive note because I really enjoyed my time playing this game, and I don't regret any of the hours that I put in because, again, I really wanted to make sure that I understood what was happening. And I do feel like now exiting this beta, because after after this video's done, I'm not gonna continue playing it. I'm just gonna close it out and say thank you to Arc System Works, thank you to Sony and PlayStation for choosing me, even if it was random, to be a part of this beta experience. And I'm very happy that we ended it in this way, because it would have made the whole experience worse, or not worse, but it would have made it suck if it turned out like, damn, we came out of it feeling like negative and like, oh man, like, not to say like that's a bad thing, but like, who wants to feel negative with anything? I mean, this is a brand new game, brand new Marvel fighting game. Like, of course we want to all enjoy it, and there's plenty of things that we can pull from it to really love and appreciate. So it's only making me want to continue playing it. But with how much time I put in this weekend, I'm kind of glad that we do get some sort of a breathing room in between whenever that next beta is, if there is going to be one, to just chill back and just relax and kind of let it simmer. And I'll have a bunch of my sets that we played all throughout the weekend uploaded to this channel, so look forward to that. Big thanks to everyone again. I'm really happy and grateful. So big dings to everybody, and couldn't have done it without all y'all. It's been a good time. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next update, the next development, and I definitely would love to interview any of the developers, especially like the combat designers. Like, I want to hear from their own mouths like what they had in mind, because I feel like what we're talking about is like pretty strong speculation, because we're basically trying to figure out why certain things are and why they made certain decisions that they made. And I really do feel like it has everything to do with the nature of the fighting game community, the nature of fighting games, and just the struggle that fighting games have, and what ways are we ever going to implement to attract new players and to keep them. And I think that Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls does that. At least it's making a great attempt towards that direction, okay? Like, share, subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Love what you love. Gang, gang.